Hello and welcome to the Journeys with PDA Coffee Chat podcast, where we seek community connection and co-regulation while chatting about all things PDA. Hi everybody, this is Heather. Before we get started on our next episode of this podcast, I just wanted to give everyone a head up. In this episode, it's going to include a discussion about applied behavior analysis, or ABA, within the autism community. And we recognize the controversy surrounding this topic, and we encourage that you listen with care and please take care of your nervous system. Our goal at Journeys with PDA is to promote understanding and not to endorse any specific approach. Also, Journeys with PDA does not endorse any specific therapy. We believe it is about the connections a therapist builds with a PDAer and not the therapy itself. Every family must do what they feel is best for their unique situation. Hello, and welcome to Journeys with PDA Coffee Chat podcast. I'm Heather.
And I'm Kerissa. Today we have two special guests with us, which is pretty exciting because we've never had two guests at one time. So we're really excited to have these special guests with us. Rachel is a returning guest now, so thank you, Rachel, for being here. And we also have Brad, and I'm going to let you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us how you're connected in with the PDA community.
Well, thank you. So I'm Brad Broyles. I'm one of the co-founders, the CFO and Human Resource Director of Polaris Academy, which is a school for autistic and neurodivergent children here in Mesa. We're in Mesa, Arizona, or Phoenix, Arizona. Excited to be here, and we're really excited to talk about PDA and what you ladies have done to our organization. So I feel very lucky and blessed to be here.
And I'm Rachel Crupi. I am the Director of Behavior Services here at Polaris Academy. I'm also one of the BCBAs that are here on campus. And I have the unique opportunity to collaborate with teachers, parents, and staff on best practices and what kind of strategies we can use in the classroom for all of our learners, including PDA strategies as well.
So anyone that has any connection with PDA, one of the biggest challenges is learning school education. It's very, very challenging. Both of my children homeschool. We struggled to find what we needed in the school system. So my PDA has done public school, homeschool, private school, back to public school, back to homeschool, and is currently homeschool, and we do a unschooling approach. But one of the top struggles that we hear from parents is difficulty with especially attending, going, and engaging with school. It's so full of demands, requirements, and expectations. But you guys at Polaris have done something different. So tell us, how did you come to PDA? How did you decide you were going to go on a totally different path?
Well, it's funny, Kerissa, you say that because a year ago from today, I never even knew anything about PDA. So we started the school last year, July 31st was our first day. We had Rachel involved. We were very ABA focused. The whole idea for Polaris Academy is that we wanted to give parents choices if they wanted their children to go to more of a traditional setting. We wanted to provide good resources for that. Our big thing is we combine education and therapy into one learning curriculum. Our programs go from preschool. We're at ninth grade. We're trying to get into 12th grade right now, but Arizona, if I can just talk a little bit about our path, I hope I'm not too long, but it's really important. Arizona is a state that's very pro-choice for parents. So kids here have open enrollment. They can go to any school that they feel is best, that the parents feel like it's best. And we have this wonderful program called ESA, which stands for Empowerment Student Account. And what that does is that parents that want to go private school, they can then use ESA to then go to those schools of their choice. So we are an ESA school that allows parents to come here if they feel like it's best for their autistic kiddos. By doing that, we don't bill insurance, so we don't have to follow the IEP, the ABA direct. And so when we first set up the program, we wanted to be an education that thought outside the box. And so like Rachel was very influential. We were like, okay, we want to be able to adapt new ideas of autistic education and autistic therapy. We didn't want to be kind of following the whole traditional model. Not that it's bad, but if you meet one autistic kid, well, you've only met one kid that has autism, right? There's a wide range of the spectrum. And so we wanted to have a way that parents could, use an education platform if they wish to, and we want to provide the best resources available, but not tied down to an IEP, right? So then Polaris Academy started, and we started going down this road. And I remember, it's funny, because I remember it was like around July, August, as we're kind of starting, and what we did is we hired staff that could be thinkers. So we hired BCBAs and we hired RBTs, and then we had, all of our teachers are special ed certified. And at first there was a little bit of a rub because that model has never been done before like that, to where you literally have registered behavioral therapists in classes as paras with educators, right? Working with autistic kiddos. And so we were really excited. We took on this challenge. We wanted to do something different and give parents a better resource. And then we did a lot of study on it. But it was funny, back in August, Rachel, so thanks to her, she's like, hey, have you heard about this journey with PDA? And I didn't know anything about it. And she's like, we need to do this. We need to go to this this summit that was I believe it was in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And my first reaction was like, okay, Rachel, you just want a free trip to Tennessee to talk about PDA. Like, I didn't know anything about it. So I was like, well, if we're going to do this, I'm a research guy. I have to know everything about everything before I dive into it. So I ended up talking to one of your partners, Dusty, and I threw her all the questions about PDA. What is it? How does it work? Why is it good for autistic, kiddos? How does this work with academia? And she was fantastic. In fact, so fantastic that we sent 4 of our staff members to your summit. And I was like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to go all in. And so we sent them over there. And then when they came back, and the ladies that we sent over was Rachel. We sent over Heidi Lee, who's one of our top education. She's a huge education expert that has a great passion about autistic kiddos and education, doing it in a better way. They came back, and I remember sitting in our conference room. I'm like, okay, tell me everything that you've learned, and it was mind blowing. They came back with so much data, so much information. Rachel, I'm so sorry, she felt a little bit overwhelmed. She's like, I've rethought my whole, philosophy. Yeah. And what you ladies did and teaching us about PDA has completely shifted our paradigm. And then we shifted our programs, and we're still doing it. We're not done yet. We're shifting our programs to be more PDA friendly because we know that it works. And we're out there trying to educate our parents more about PDA. Not that ABA is bad, but I think there's room for ABA therapy, for PDA therapy. We got into the regulated classroom. So we're a huge support of Journey with PDA. You've definitely made a big splash here in Arizona with our school, and we're great. And so that's kind of part of our journey. So we're very, very excited. I even went out and bought the book.
Claire Truman's
Okay.
book, The Teacher's Introduction to Pathological Demand Avoidance.
And I've read through it, and I think we're going to make from all of our teachers read through it as well. And we're going to buy all the books and throw that with our staff, and see how we can use PDA more in an academic setting at Polaris Academy. So thank you.
It's so incredible to be able to hear others who listened to us. So often, Heather and I and our team, we kind of feel like we're just like shouting out into the dark,
Huge
like,
void. Yeah.
you know, this first off, pathological demand avoidance is absolutely real. These are not naughty children. These are autistic kids who are struggling and having a hard time, and their needs aren't being recognized, and so often they're being brushed off as difficult and naughty and defiant, like oppositional. These are all the words that I heard about my daughter at school. And so Heather and I participate very regularly as advocates for IEPs, and we work with parents on, trying to convince people PDA is real. And so to be able to meet people who are like, yes, this is real, and we want to make real changes. And so you kind of mentioned that it was mind-blowing, and that it kind of just changed everything you thought you knew. What were some of those realizations that were just like kind of mind-blowing or so different that made you want to stop and shift what you were doing? What were some of those like top details or specifics that you were like, wow? But
Well, if I can go off on another tantrum, I'll try to explain this simplistically. So I'm a father of 6 kids, okay, and so I've worked with a lot of children. At Polaris, we kind of feel like we take a very, like, in a way, a fiduciary approach to our parents. Like, we feel like we need to give them our best and work with these kiddos as if they are our own kiddos, right? So we always want to give our best, and that's very important. A few things that Rachel shared with us that she learned in the summit, like I always remember, like the spoon theory. I love that theory. So basically, the concept is that you have so many spoons throughout the day, and if you give throughout different demands or throughout the demand of the day, you give out your spoons, and at the end of some point, you don't have any more spoons, so you can't give that out. So how do you replenish that? Another theory that came out that I really enjoyed was the bucket theory. So you have a bucket, and most of us, we have holes in our bucket. So when water gets poured in, we have a way to get it out. A PDA really doesn't have that. So when the bucket gets full of water, it spills over, and they just don't know how to, deal with those type of situations. Another thing that was very influential was the co-regulating and how that looks like. I remember Rachel, I always go back to Rachel. I know you guys taught it, but Rachel taught me. And so I always kind of go back to that. So I really appreciate her. I'm a very excited person. I love sports. I love going out there and being active. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm really excited for the day. Like I'm ready to go. I'm an early bird riser. Rachel was explaining that at PDA will, normal people, or I shouldn't say normal, people wake up and they're like, hey, really excited for the day. A PDA would almost wake up and they are overexhausted, overstimulus of what the demand of the day would be. And I think about that. Another one was well, I guess I just think about that and I see our kiddos, and when I'm walking around our programs, those thoughts go into my mind. I'm like, okay, that person, they feel that way. These are real emotions. These are real experiences. So I'm sensitive to it, and I'm like, okay, if I was like that, how would I want to be approached? Like, how can I, we know that it's just like, I can only imagine what that would feel like, and that would be awful. That'd be tough to deal with. So how can we design our programs? How can we put together the classroom how can I design our experiences from the time they come to school to the time they leave the school, that they can feel, they can be at their best emotionally. We know that with kids that are dysregulated, they cannot process a reward, or they're not open to learning. So how can we help that? So as I learn more about PDA, I guess I just feel more empathy for these kiddos. And so as an educator, I feel like is my duty to figure out and to use resources the best that we can to be able to connect with these kiddos so they can perform at their maximum level. Um, but then also I work more with our staff. And so I look at from an administrative side, how can I empower my staff and give them the tools and resources so that when they see kiddos that need assistance, they have the tools and resources available to them so that they can work with those situations. So the more I get into it, the more fascinated I get into it. I wish we knew all the answers. I don't, and we're just trying to figure this out to design our systems to really help out with these kids because we love them and we want them to be very successful in life.
Rachel, you did an excellent job. Go
Well, thank you.
I know.
You were right when we, spoke on the last one about we were diligently
Oh, you were.
listening,
Yes,
and
that's
we were
right.
taking notes.
Brad, we talked about this in last week when we recorded last week. I said, Rachel, I remember where the four of you were sitting and how diligently you were writing notes, and we basically just saw the tops of your head, like when we were up, doing our thing. It was just, they were mad. I mean, there was smoke coming off of their writing utensils. So it would definitely,
Oh.
I mean, it was in beautiful Tennessee, and I hope you
It
guys
was.
had fun
It was
there.
gorgeous there.
However, I promised you it wasn't just let's go to Tennessee for a vacation.
Well, when she said, "Hey, let's go to Tennessee," I'm like, "Okay, Rachel, how close is the casino?" Right?
No, it was fantastic. It was, I've worked in different settings. I've worked supporting families and children in the home, in the clinic setting, and then the school as well. And what Polaris has been able to give me as a professional, from a professional standpoint here, is how do we meet each child? How do we individualize the needs of everybody? It's not a one size fits all approach. And while we can all as a team here implement all these different strategies, it is so much a focus on preventative and antecedent strategies that we do. For any of our children, when they first walk in the door, we know, and what I've learned is that, especially with maybe a child with PDA, they're already facing, like, they could face multiple demands before they even walk into our door. And how do we greet them when they arrive? What is the environment when they come in? Polaris has just the classrooms itself is designed to help with some of those sensory needs that we are trying to provide and anticipate the needs of our kids when they come in. So maybe the lights are more dimmed. They're not on full speed. Sometimes we have some soft music playing or some fun music playing too. We play a lot of Disney or whatever. And we greet our kids. I get to stand at the front post and say hello to all of our kids that come in. And that doesn't always mean they call me Mary Poppins here on campus.
She is the Mary Poppins.
But I am also sensitive to sometimes that can be a lot for some of our learners. And so I have found giving them just a thumbs up or even just a smile or even just being present and just having that calm demeanor and that initial warm greeting with them, it kind of sets a tone when they first walk into our doors. And then implementing a lot of the strategies that I learned at the retreat was, when they come in, let's not just, we need to connect with them first. We need to allow them to come in, and when they're ready, they can come join in the morning activity. They can unpack their backpack. We've shown them kind of what the general idea is for that day, kind of like a schedule. You come in, if you think of a school and you think of your typical like setup, right? You have your arrival, then you maybe have your first rotations, and then you're transitioning to a special, and then maybe it's recess, and all of those things are there. But by providing opportunities to really allow autonomy and flexibility on that timetable, our ratios here is a special educational teacher and then 2 RBTs per classroom. So our ratio is like 5-to-1. And what that allows for is if maybe other students in that classroom are ready to move on, we still have supportive staff that understand, okay, this kiddo just needs a little bit more time. What does that look like for that student? Where can we be flexible if they need additional sensory support? We have staff that are able to provide that for them, especially with our youngest learners. Transitions in general can be really challenging. And so we kind of have the staff support here that can allow those students where if they're not ready to even come into the classroom, we have these little nooks, we call them the coves, that are in our hallway, and they have like acoustic tiles surrounding, and it's like a bench with like a portable like little roller desk, and they're really comfortable. That's my office. That's typically where I like to stay because I feel very connected to all of the students out there. So that's typically where I'll be. But if they're not even ready to come into the classroom, they totally have a place that they can just sit for as long as they need. And then when they're ready to come on in, and we have children that utilize that every day, whether or not, they've been identified as having the PDA profile or not. It's available to all of our students. And I think that's one of my favorite things about Polaris is our kids get to be themselves here. And we meet them where they're at. And then we are searching for what is the best strategy to help them feel that they are in an environment where they are comfortable, safe, and ready to learn, so that they can learn the tools that they need to carry on with them on their educational journey and just as their journey as an individual. Self-advocacy is something that is very important to us. In addition to, all behavior is a form of communication. And if they are having a hard time, how are we meeting them with what kind of mode of communication do they have? There's some kiddos that we have that they communicate by their look on their face. I know by their demeanor, the paraverbals, what is their body language like? What kind of tone do they have that day? And other kids can tell you, I'm not ready yet. I need more time. I'm all done. No, thank you. I don't like that, or I would like more time. I would like more of this. And finding a way and meeting them with whatever mode of communication they're at, I have found in the ABA world as a BCBA, teaching that, communication that can get their needs and wants met in a way that maybe doesn't involve what you typically might see as or described as a challenging type behavior. And so even with our littlest learners, we really try to find what does that look like for them. So there's collaboration with maybe speech therapy and the parents. And a lot has to do with how does this child learn how to advocate for themselves and to be able to appropriately get their needs and wants met. And then from there, we get to learn more about them. We get to know what are their favorite things, what areas do they excel in, what special interests do they have. We have some really, really cool kids here at Polaris, and they are so very different. But then also where I come in is I also want to see not only spending time with that child, but also communicating with the parents. What areas do you see are a struggle, and what can we do to help? We can't always solve everything, right? But at the end of the day, if I'm able to help a child come in and want to come to school and want to come into our environment, and the wins that we celebrate to other people might seem very, very, very small. To us, it's a party, and we celebrate so many things from, we've had kiddos where when they first came in, it took them an hour to transition into their classroom. And the more they learn that we're a safe place and that we're going to allow them to be able to come into the classroom when they're ready and they can have that slow, soft start to their day, those kids come in right now and they say hi and they go right into the room and they're ready to go. And we have seen so much progress in so many different areas. And to me, that's a huge win and that's a success. So
there's so many ADHD, autistic, PDA kids who really want to go to school. And this is something that we hear a lot. My child really wants to go to school. They're really smart. They like to learn. PDA kids, some of them are very social, they're very busy, and they like to have activity and people around. So we hear this a lot, like, my kid wants to be at school, but what happens is they walk through the door and they're bombarded. Yeah. And there is this really tight schedule, and you've got to get into homeroom and unpack your stuff and sit down. Don't move. Be quiet. Yep. Like,
make your lunch choice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, find the list. Make your
morning circle.
Yeah.
And so, just like reflecting back on my daughter's struggles, one of the things that I would ask is, can she start her day with a trusted person? And can she start it with that person somewhere else, not in the classroom? Can she do an initial check-in, like beginning of the day, and have a really gentle, soft start that begins with connection? And that was one of those things that I was like, I think that would completely shift the tone of her day. And it would shift her anxiety and her worries. And if that person could sort of reassure her in, like, this is what's happening today, these are your options, it would have made a huge difference for her. And I recognize that we were in the public school system at that point, and they were like, we don't have the resources, we don't have the staff, and as much as maybe that special education teacher would have liked to do that, that's one special education teacher for the whole, K through 8. And so then hearing about, like, all the people in your classroom and the adults, and that there's so many adults who are there to help have those really nice transitions. And that just would make such a big difference. I mean, that's how I would want to start my day.
Right. Well, Kerissa, you make a great point. Like, it's not that public school is bad. Public school is just not really set up that way. They don't really look at it from that type of standpoint. In my approach to PDA, I work more with our staff. Rachel works more with the kiddos. I work with trying to teach our staff to do PDA therapy, and it's really neat. We get these educators, just like you explained, Kerissa, like you have one special need teacher who wants to make those approaches, but they can't really do it because the public school system is just not set up that way. Right now, Polaris Academy, we have about 105 kiddos in our program. I would say probably the majority of them came from homeschool, not really from the public school. So these are parents that were kind of looking for an alternative way to help out their autistic kiddo, new approaches, how can we connect? And like what Rachel said, these kids want to connect with other kids. We need to, I guess our approach is we want to create the environment, let the kids grow together, have those connections. And, we get a lot of success stories. Like the other day, we had one kiddo that finally had his own birthday party, that he was able to invite all of his friends to come. And that's a huge success. That's a big, big success. And kind of jumping back to our staff, we make PDA it's not a suggestion. It is our curriculum. It is what we do. So when we interview BCBA, speech therapist, occupational therapist, RBTs, when they come involved with our programs, the very first thing that we let them know is, hey, we do PDA approach as well. How do you feel about that? What do you know about it? And right from the get-go of the interview, we start teaching about what it is so that they come in with that mindset. We create that culture so that we can, again, like Rachel say, we want to meet the kids where they're at and make those connections. And those connections, we got to be sometimes very creative. We got to be patient. Kerissa, one time you said something that I really liked about negotiating. I don't know if you remember that. So for all those, we invited Kerissa over to a summit that we had here in Mesa, Arizona. She gave a great presentation to the community about PDA. It was wonderful. And I remember one parent asked, like, when do you stop negotiating with your kids? And Chris is like, I'm always negotiating. It never stops. And that's kind of how it is. It's a good mindset. It's a good shift. And really to do it from a organizational level, you can't just have one person be committed. And I remember I tell this to the staff, like, we're not just going to have one teacher just do PDA. We're all going to do it. Because if we have one teacher do it or one staff member do it, it's not going to work. We need to be, as a culture, part of our identity, we need to embrace it, and we need to keep learning and building and share our resources with others so that they can get it as well, and more importantly, with the parents. So we love again, that's why I love your mission, because that's what you guys are doing, and we greatly support you.
Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, one of my coping skills when I'm in deep negotiation with my PDA or my 15-year-old son is I just have the Priceline theme going through my head. I don't know if you remember those commercials where William Shatner is the Priceline negotiator. So in my head, I just, Priceline negotiator. That's where I go to my happy place and just like, because it's just going to happen. You are on their ride. You just need to buckle in and go with the flow.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Everything is up for negotiation. Like my husband and I joke that like we could be hostage negotiators because we are like top level at negotiating. And I can remember, when like brand new mama, maybe my daughter was like 2 years old, and I don't know who it was, but somebody out there was like, you never negotiate with a child. Like you don't negotiate with children. Like you just tell them how it is and then they do it. And then I think probably my daughter was about 3 and we were like, oh wow, that was the worst advice. Everything has to be up for negotiation, and that really ties into the they might be children, they might be young, but they are still human beings. Mm-hmm. And they have needs, they have feelings, they have ideas. And sometimes they don't have the skills to just calmly say, this is what I need. And so sometimes it might look like crying and yelling or throwing things or hitting, in those early years. But yeah, that behavior is a communication. And so when I put like I'm the boss because I said so attitude aside, and I look into this little face of like, okay, this person is really struggling. Here's what I'm trying to get. Here's what I need. What is it that you need? What do you want? And then let's like work on through that. And so there has to be that give and take and that negotiation. And there's some things are not worth negotiating and you just say yes.
Right.
So like that's one of the other things to learn. Like, is this worth, fighting over, pushing over? Is there a reason why they can't have 2 or 3 more minutes before they move on to that next activity? Like, is that worth it? Does it really matter if it's 10 minutes or 8 minutes? Things like that. Like, so they want 10, give them 10. Like, always having that flexibility. It just changes everyone's.
Well, I'm sorry, Kerissa, because you said something that was really, really important. I love that, I think, again, I go from an admin level of designing our programs. The flexibility, like you explained, like, hey, can we give them 10 minutes? Hey, can we be more flexible? When we put together the school, we wanted that flexibility. Okay, we need to have structure, but we got to be flexible to the needs of the kiddos. And again, like to do PDA right, it has to come from an organizational level, right? It just has to, or it just doesn't work. There's no way you can implement that. So, it was, as you were talking, it made me think of, again, I deal with more of the parents. I deal with more staff. If I can share a little story, I thought this was, it was really interesting. So at the end of the school year, I get the great, I get to talk to all the parents, like, how did it go? What can we do better? How's things going? And I talked to one parent that he's like, Brad, I have 3 kids. And when I grew up, my dad ruled with the belt and my mom ruled with the chancla. That's just how it was. And then so he's like, when I became a parent, I ruled with the belt and my wife ruled with the chancla, right? It worked for my 2 kids. My 3rd kid is autistic and it didn't work with him. And he's a PDAer. I didn't even know what PDA was. And then I got involved with Polaris Academy. And what I've learned throughout this whole process is how to be a father and how to now work with my kid. I was able to connect better as a father now, and my wife is better to connect as a mother. And when we hear stories like that, when I first got involved, I was always thinking about, how can we make this, profitable? How can we make this work? Now it became like a mission. Mm-hmm. Like now we're on a mission to change lives. We're on a mission to kind of help parents become better parents, to become better at what they do. So not only do we want to help out our kids, but we really need to help parents that want to learn that, how to be better parents and how to make us all better. So I always keep saying thank you to you too, because you've made such a big impact on us and our mindset and our belief systems. And so I know I always come grateful because I am very grateful to journey with PDA. So thanks.
That's such an incredible story, because that is our mission, is helping parents be able to connect, helping kids connect with their parents, their family, their community, their school, and to bring peace back into their lives. And as I was on my journey, when I didn't know what PDA was, but I was like, things are not working. And I was out like seeking answers, and I would ask anybody I could. And so one of the things, which you're probably familiar with, but if you go and you see like any kind of a therapist, OT, speech, psychiatrist, they say like, what is your goal in coming here today? And I would just be like, I want my child to be peaceful within themselves. That's my goal. That's what I want. I'm not looking for like a quick fix. I don't want it to be easy, not even like happy. I want them to be peaceful within themselves. If they can be peaceful within themselves, then that's going to move through the whole family, and it's going to shift everything. And so I hear that, and it's so exciting because you're bringing that peacefulness into that family, like into their home. And that's incredible. And that makes that huge impact. And that's where you can see change in grandparents. And now they're telling their neighbor down the street, like,
and who knows who that dad is going to have contact with, who needs to hear from another male figure that you don't have to rule with an iron fist. You don't have to, live this way. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so
it's these ripples that just go.
It is. And to that point, so like, I'm a big sports guy. I'm always, I enjoy athletics. And I'm always studying about how to have maximum performance in any kind of professional setting, right? So what are the tools and resources you need to do to maximize your output, in any kind of sporting activity? So I coach football. I'm a big football guy. I love it, right? The more I get involved with autistic kiddos, yeah, it's easy to see an athlete says, okay, you can measure that. But with autistic kiddos, it's a more neurodivergent approach. It's a psychological approach. It's training those psychological muscles or the behavioral muscles, right? I guess I kind of think of it like that. So how can I design an environment that creates the maximum amount of output and meeting those kids where they're at? And again, that's where kind of this PDA approach really does. It really works. When I was first introduced to it, it was like a light bulb that just went off. And I'm like, this stuff is so important. We need to embrace it. Not only do we need to embrace it, we got to champion it. And we've got to put it at all levels of our organization because, we know it works and we know it's a right approach. It's a fantastic approach. And anyway, so it just, it's incredible to see. Like, so at Polaris, obviously we are academic focused as well, right? We want them to grow academically. We, find their talents and excel. What we've noticed is that throughout this school year, this last school and we've only been open for a year, so I can't wait to see what happens this upcoming year. We have seen, because of the therapy model with PDA, we have seen maximum outputs of educational results in our curriculum, which is incredible, absolutely incredible. And I don't want to come across, you know, braggy, but we're very excited for what we've seen, and we're going to be releasing some data out to the public about what we've seen and what we've experienced through this PDA model throughout our program. So it's really exciting. Like we're only scratching at the surface. I can't wait for the next 2 to 3 years to come by because it's going to be incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the graphs that I have. I love data and I love the child more. But then when they go home and they've gone home for the day, I sit and I look at my graphs. I look at, to me, it's such a good visual analysis of all of the implementation of those strategies. And it shows me, are we moving in the right direction? Do we need to pivot? Do we need to make modifications? Did I miss something? Did we miss a prerequisite skill here? How do we help break down bigger tasks into smaller ones for this child? How do we make sure that they are getting any sensory needs met? How are we setting them up for success in the classroom? And I have a handful of students, and one in particular, where their graphs are amazing to look at because you can see a phase change line in them of when the kiddo started with us and we were using, more of the ABA strategies with him, which are still effective for this kiddo. But then when we came back from the PDA retreat with armed with like all of this amazing like new strategies, there's a phase change line. And we that day met with the whole team and the parent, and we said, hold on, we're going to do this. And we went from doing first next contingencies and token boards and prompting and that follow through, really more of your more well-known ABA interventions and strategies. And we moved to, we gave this kiddo a classroom job. We allowed some, hey, let's be flexible. We used a lot of declarative language. We made sure that he had he had a safe person in that classroom, and that person was always available to him when he needed it. We made sure that we were using the regulated classroom, the connectors and the activators and the settlers, especially with upcoming transitions, to make sure sensory needs were being met, making sure all those preventative, as much as we could, strategies were in place and ready to go. Allowed a lot of child-led situations, strewing of activities of those lesser preferred type of things were still available that we were hoping that maybe he would go over and start engaging with, but we weren't going to make it contingent on something else. He really responded. We saw a little bit of a spike in some behaviors because he was almost like, what do you mean? I get to make that choice. I get to choose which rotation I go to. I'm not ready yet. So when I am ready with this, I can then join in with the next rotation. And I get to be the line leader today. And I get, he loved it. And the response to him is it really actually helped build a stronger connection with that child and the teacher and the other children in the classroom, because it wasn't this, I say this, I'm this authoritative figure. Yep. When I say this, you do this, and that's it. You have no choice. The only time that's going to be a thing is if we're in a fire drill. Where it's like, I'm sorry, I love you. I would love to give you this choice, but we're moving and we're going outside. That might be the only time
but
that
you built in enough trust with the student.
Yes.
That when a fire drill happens,
yeah,
you've lessened the amount of water in that bucket.
Yes.
Right? This person has more spoons so that when there is a fire drill, he's able to access what you are asking him to do much easier than if he didn't have the margin to be able to do it.
Yes.
Well,
And that just, I see in real time a visual analysis of how powerful a change in your approach and the change in the strategies to meet the needs of that child, where it was just like, this is it. Like, this is incredible. We were able to help this child in ways that I didn't know before, or it just wasn't really ever really explained to me in a way that made sense, I guess, where I was just like, oh, in ABA, you have your approaches, you have the way that you might run a program based on the evidence-based research, that you do, but not everything needs to be that way. And ABA can be extremely beneficial for some learners. And it might be really great for that family, the strategies that they learn. But there are other strategies out there that can be very powerful. And if you could have seen this kiddo at the beginning of the year and then at the end of the year, most of our kids didn't want to go on summer break. They wanted to stay. And just the growth that we saw. And there is another component to this. What I learned, these strategies and just the thought process behind it can be for everybody.
yes.
And that's powerful because I have 3 children. My oldest is autistic. And I started using PDA strategies in my home. And I'm like, okay, I actually have a better connection because they're all teenagers. I have a 21-year-old, an 18, and a 17-year-old. And talk about the teenage years of the don't tell me what to do phase, right? Yeah. And like, okay, well, I've applied some of these strategies with them, and they come to me more now. They are more willing to negotiate and these things, instead of me saying, oh, well, if you don't clean your room, then you're not going out with your friends later, for snacks type of thing. Now it's just like, hey, I know you want to go out with your friends. That's awesome. When you're ready, get your room clean and let me know. And I hope you have a great time tonight.
Yep.
Just even that approach with them, they're not feeling like I'm this super authoritative type of person. And they're able to kind of feel more included in a lot of the decision making and kind of how. So it's not micromanaging them, looking at it from even just being a parent with my own children. So I think that's powerful.
We have
Well,
families.
and
No, go ahead, Brad.
well, no, it just because Rachel said that she started using PDA in her family, and so have I, and my wife and I have been using that strategy. In fact, I mentioned I coach football, and I started using it with my football players because it is effective. Because this is a little bit different of a tangent, but football coaches are notorious of like, I'm the authoritative figure. You must listen to everything I tell you, and you must follow me blindly. To where the PDA approach with my players is more co-regulating. Like I'm negotiating with them just a little bit more, and there's a mind shift saying like, well, you're giving up your power, but I've noticed that I actually have more power with my players, and I'm able to work with them, and I connect with them better. And there were situations where yelling doesn't work. You have to use different techniques where PDA is very effective. So to Rachel's point, you don't have to, clinically be diagnosed as a PDA-er. You can use these approaches in multiple ways with our, I have a 6-year-old son that we use it with from sometimes. I have teenagers, 18-year-old football dudes that I use that as well. So it's really fascinating. The more I get involved with it, the more I love it. And just to kind of, whoever's listening, we have I know you have a lot of followers on your podcast. From an organizational level, if you feel like, hey, I want to make a bigger splash in my organization with PDA, how do we do this? You really need to do it from the top down. You have to. It needs to be a culture shift. And one thing that I was really proud that when we designed Polaris Academy, we wanted to design it in a way that we're open to change, we're open to new ideas, we're open to new techniques. And because of that openness, that we're willing to learn from an organizational level, and we were able to shift. It really was amazing. After that summit, it was like, I don't know, like almost like a baptism for our school, because it was like once we learned about PDA, we really just shifted our whole focus into it, and we dove in 100%. We were all about it, and it has made a huge difference. I'm still blown away of the amount of impact that has made. And that's why I really encourage any organizations, schools that work with autistic kiddos. Man, I really hope they listen to this. I really hope they take this and they embrace it. I really hope that we're going to be going to you guys' summit every year now. We already have four more of our staff going because we feel like we're just barely scratching the surface. I don't think we know enough yet, and we're excited to learn.
And Brett, you are absolutely right when you say it. It's a top-down approach. It has to be, because I can't tell you how many hours and hours and hours of meetings with teachers, meetings with even, you know, special education, the administrative level of special educators, and they're all on board. And then we go to the next meeting, and all of a sudden everything starts getting shut down. And then it's like, okay, there is a gatekeeper above you. There's somebody who has decided they're not on board, and therefore, they're not going to implement, any of these accommodations that we have, said is what these kiddos need. So I couldn't agree with you more that it has to be from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the bottom up, you can bring the information and leave the little trails, but it really takes, I think it takes a very brave person to look at it and go, because this is uncharted. I mean, it's really and truly an uncharted, especially when you're coming back from, such a behaviorist background. This is a very uncharted territory, and it's scary. It's scary to step off the path.
Well, and what I see, Heather, is like working with like BCBAs that they're just so ABA focused, which is fine. They feel like we're taking it away from ABA. Like it's not one way or the other. They kind of, for whatever reason, they have that mindset. And I look at it as different. Like I feel like it's more tools on my tool belt. It makes me a better provider. It makes me a better therapist. So why fight against it when I can be better? Because really, it's all about the kids. It's all about the kids. It's all about making those connections, growing this youth, and having them excel at a maximum level that they want to have fulfilling lives. So I can't agree with you more, Heather. I don't understand the pushback. I don't understand. It really should be more of the opposite.
So, absolutely, just incredible discussion. It's so amazing to hear, the administrators like bringing this to everyone, because if a classroom teacher, if they are on board with PDA, they want to help, they want to connect, but they're being held to specific requirements, they're limited in what they can do. And so it really has to be, top down, and everyone's got to be, it can't just be one or two teachers. It can't be the para only, really across the board. And I think you also made the fantastic point in that this PDA approach, which is essentially allowing autonomy and connection first, works for every person. Declarative language, that is a fantastic way to communicate with anyone, whether it's with your partner or your spouse, your child, a coworker. It's still so effective way to communicate. And so, like, bringing these things in is beneficial for every child. ADHD child, like, declarative language is going to really it's going to help them be able to transition and move. If they have the power to say, I cannot sit in this chair, or I need to be outside, or I'm way too sleepy, like, that's going to help everyone. And there's kind of this fear of, if we give too much autonomy to the children, they'll never choose to learn. They won't choose, well, they'll never want to read a book. And so I think you guys are proof that if that child is calm and connected, that they're all very curious. They do want to learn. And you're creating a atmosphere where learning is happening. And that's really exciting to see. And I think it's just opening up so many possibilities for education. And so grateful that you guys trusted us and came to our retreat. And it's so fantastic that you're reading all of these great books out there, because there really are some fantastic writers out there that are putting together really great information. But if no one wants to read the books, then, they can't learn or grow. So thank you for reading the books. Thank you for connecting with parents. Just thank you for believing us. And as a parent, thank you for wanting to look at things different. And so we're so excited to be friends with you guys, to be partners, to all move forward on this like common mission together.
Well, I hate to tell you this, Kerissa, you can't get rid of us. So sorry. We love you guys. We love your mission. We support what you do greatly. My only kind of, to those who are listening, if you feel like you're working with administrators that are just not understanding this approach or doesn't really quite get the vision, please call me. I'm happy to go and beg them to do this. Like, I feel like our approach with PDA is so important. It's like taking vitamins in the morning, right? We can't function without it as an organization. That's how deeply rooted it is with us. And I would tell any administrator, anybody who's involved with special needs kiddos, I would beg them to do this. I would beg them to attend your summits. I would say, you can't function unless you do this. That's how important we feel about it. I want everybody to learn, study, like you said, take on all the information you can. And I still feel like we still are learning more about it. We don't know all about it. We don't know all the best practices yet. I'm always constantly challenging our staff, like, how do we implement this more? How do we, how do we build this up in a high level function? And so we're very grateful for everything that we've learned. And I'm so excited for the future. I'm so excited what's going to happen here in the next 2 or 3 years, where this grows. Another thing that we saw, maybe other states are doing this, but Arizona, we haven't seen it. So when we see IEPs, we see different diagnoses on there. Just recently, we saw a diagnosis of PDA, autism with PDA, as a diagnosis on a IEP, and that's never happened before. So we're really excited to see how that that's just a new movement. The movement is going. The movement is growing.
The word's getting out.
Hmm.
Well, we just want to thank you again for chatting and hanging out with us, for sharing and for bringing so much encouragement and hope to educators, professionals, therapists, parents, and to all the kids. Thank you for that.
You're welcome, and thank you for having us.
Hmm. Thank you.
And we will put your contact information in the show notes. So if you were out there and you want to take Brad up on his offer to speak with any administrator,
I will beg them.
watch out.
Beg them.
You don't know what you're asking. Also, if you would like to know more about pathological demand avoidance, the profile of autism, you can find out more information at journeyswithpda.com. You can find us on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You can also email us at journeyswithpda@gmail.com.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Love you guys.